two dirty painters to multiple seven-figure business owners. I'm Redion.
And I'm Karmelo.
We're giving you guys the insider secrets to take your trades business to the next level.
From crazy stories to proven strategies, you're ready to supercharge your business with us.
Welcome to the Dirty Painters Podcast.
In today's episode, we'll be revealing the top 10 biggest mistakes you can make as a painting business owner. Let's get right into it. So with CloudBooks and having all our new clients come on board, I think we have like a theme going on of like top 10 things not to do, top 10 biggest mistakes you can make as a painting business owner. And I think this is a really good thing for people that are in the painting business so they can avoid it if haven't done those mistakes yet.
Or they can identify them if they're doing them right now as we speak.
And then some of these mistakes, I can say I've done those myself too.
We've done probably all of them ourselves.
And then I can give you an example once we get on each one of them. So, number one, underestimating costs, failing to accurately estimate project expenses. Originally, when you first gave me my first few leads and I started selling my first few jobs, I would have an okay understanding of the labor and materials, but one thing I would never account for was the overhead. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I failed to calculate into it. And when I was thinking I was making 40 to 50% profit margins, I would probably be making 30 to 25%.
Yes.
So that didn't hurt us by a lot, but it still
because
hurt
we were working
the business.
ourselves.
Yeah.
We were doing the painting.
So I could basically make up for that, but doing the work myself.
Correct. Or work harder, longer hours to finish a project on time. I've underestimated costs a lot of times. I can think of examples. For example, my most common example I always use is when I would not factor in that the trim that we're painting was oil, that it needed extra preparation. Or another thing when we started doing cabinets that I was not doing right is when we would refinish oak cabinets and the customers wanted a full grain fill, which is more labor intensive, more work, I would not factor that in the price because I was just eager to get the project in and the customers expect the full grain. So my communication or I was not understanding their expectations properly at the time. So a lot of the first oak cabinet project we did were very, very underbid. Or when we were doing epoxy floors, I was underbidding a lot of those floors because I was not accounting how much prep they would take. Or when we started doing the big projects like 4,000 plus square feet interiors, exteriors, and I had no experience, a lot of times I sold myself short because we've never done a project like that before, so we didn't know how much time it actually took. In the beginning, you're gonna take those hits, and from those hits and losses, you're gonna learn on how to make them better, how to be more proficient in evaluating and estimating a job. So don't look at them as losses, look at them more as lessons that you're gonna carry on to the next similar estimate. Because again, at the end of the day, we just sell paint jobs. We're not selling, it's not rocket science. Projects are very similar. It's a very repetitive cycle. So if you fuck up one time at a big project, on the next one, you're gonna make up from the experience that you gained from that one that you messed up. So don't put yourself down if you mess up once or twice. Just take it as a lesson, identify what you did wrong, and become better on the next ones. That's why it matters to be self-aware and take notes on where you messed up so you don't do it again. Those will be some expensive lessons, but they're gonna make you a lot more money on the long run because you're gonna stop messing up.
Number two, poor pricing, setting prices too low or too high, affecting profitability and closing ratio. So the pricing, I know it can be a tricky thing. You're not always going to hit the bullseye on the price, so you're going to make the most amount of money and the client will be happy. But getting it close to that range, you will get better at it once you start doing your job cost analysis, when you figure out your labor, your materials, and then your overhead. I would say poor pricing. I've had a few examples of myself because up in Michigan, we were used to dealing with wood or vinyl siding or hardy board or whatever. And when we first came down here to Florida, stucco is a more porous surface. It requires more material. So for a job, I had estimated 10 gallons of primer, 10 gallons of top coat. And we actually ended up spending 15 gallons of primer and then 25 gallons of top coat. which threw my numbers completely off. And then that's when I went back to the drawing board. I said to myself, okay, for this type of surface, it's going to require more material. So I have to account for that on my estimate.
Also, you can't be shooting from the hip prices. I was going to use that example on our next episode, top 10 things that people do wrong when they're estimating or like when they're selling. But I'm going to use it now as well. So the Cloudbook's headquarters in Michigan, we had to get the exterior painted. And then obviously a lot of you know we've been off the Michigan market now for 3 years. So we don't have crews there anymore. We're not operating. We're not painting up in Michigan anymore. So I made an Instagram story and I had a bunch of painters because I'm a shopper. I'm a customer. I want to get the best price and the best value. Or I'll just go painting myself.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day, I mean, me and Carmelo would have gone up there with 3 days, but our time is more valuable doing the other things. So I was like, okay, we'll hire somebody to do it. And we got a lot of estimates. There was such inconsistency from numbers, the way they were estimating the jobs, the way that they were pricing out the jobs. The numbers were like all over the board. I had estimates for $3,000, and then I had estimates for like $16,000, which was the highest one. And I was like, okay, these guys definitely shooting prices from the hip because there's no way they're more expensive than when I was up there. I was the top price. Or they just don't understand how to price out the job properly. They don't know how much labor is it gonna take. They're not efficient enough to produce that job in 3 to 4 days that it would have taken us to do the job. So all these inconsistencies showed me, I got a lot of data that a lot of painters, they don't know how to price jobs. They just shoot from the hip and they're like, oh, if it lands, it lands. They're not aware also of their market. They're not aware of what the market prices are, because you have to be competitive as well in your market. You can't always be triple the price of everybody else because the market is gonna push you to the side and you're not gonna be selling any jobs, no matter how good you are, no matter how amazing you think your paint jobs are. You have to be within market. So that was a big thing and that's what kind of sparked up this episode for me, because I saw so many inconsistencies. I was a customer at the time where I got a lot of estimates from other painters. It was all over the board. Poor pricing can go both ways. It can go low poor pricing or it can go high poor pricing, and they both can hurt you. Poor pricing, low, you'll bleed money, break even, lose money, not make any money and overwork yourself. High pricing, you're not gonna get the jobs. So you have to have like a sweet spot right in the middle where you can be competitive, still make your margins, and still deliver good value and a good job without cutting corners and doing shit work pretty much.
Number 3, neglecting marketing. Not investing in effective marketing strategies. Essentially, you're waiting to get jobs from an act of God.
Yes, we're very notorious of that in the beginning too, but it didn't last long because also I cracked paid ads. I got addicted to it. But in the beginning, I mentioned in previous episodes, my number one mistake is we would get busy and I would shut off my marketing. I'm like, oh, we're busy, we don't need any work. You need to constantly be visible within your market. Even if you're very busy, still your customers need to be aware. Just because you're busy this month doesn't mean you're gonna be busy next month or the following, or when slow season comes around. At the time when I was making this mistake, I was busy, slammed throughout the summer, good weather, people were painting, and then winter would roll around and I would blame the winter and I would blame the snow that, oh, we don't have work. And that's a very common theme from all painters. They complain that they don't have enough work, but then you look at the actions they're taking and if they're being proactive, and a lot of them don't run marketing consistently. They'll turn their marketing channels when they need work and then they expect to get work immediately. It doesn't work like that. It has to be consistent. It has to be a compounding effect. All your marketing efforts pile up in the long run. It's a long game. You can't expect to like sprint, get the work done, stop, and then sprint again. No, you have to constantly keep running. You have to constantly keep your marketing efforts, even if they're very minimal. You have to be visible in your marketplace.
Number 4, inconsistent quality. Quality work should be your number one priority, even if you're not really good at marketing. your business, your work will speak for itself. You can stay busy even just being a good painter.
People talk. We've noticed that the first time we noticed that is when we moved to Tampa. People talk a lot. We still go above and beyond. And then that was a market disruption because a lot of painting companies in Florida, they suck. It's a compounding effect with your current jobs as well. A lot of painters, they make this mistake. They think once they finish the job and they get paid, they're done with the customer. No, you have to maintain that relationship. You have to increase the lifetime value of that customer. And it's not because you just paint their house one time and you forget about them. That customer, in their sphere of influence, they might have 5 other people that might be interested. So you have to make sure you give them a good experience. You have to make sure that they love your product. You have to make sure that you treated them right. Your customer service, your communication was proper. Because those customers, they might need your painting services for the next 5 years or 10 years or never. But they talk. People talk a lot. They talk when you're good and they talk when you're bad. That's why they talk more when you're bad, obviously. For example, they'll be like, their friend will ask them, oh, who painted your cabinets and you did a shit job? You're like, yeah, don't use these guys. They fucked up my job. Or if you did a good job, you're like, oh, here, follow these guys on Instagram. They do great work. And that's how you get repeat customers and that's how you get referrals, by doing a good job. If you're inconsistent and you're just looking for your next paycheck all the time, you're always chasing the next lead and then the next sale, that's not how you grow a business, and that's not how your reputation grows. Because a lot, like we said, this year, a lot of our work is repeat work, referrals, key relationships, just because we did such good work with the customers and then they talk about us. It's very important to keep your quality consistent, like Karmelo said, at any project. If you go and paint a front door, paint it right, because a front door might bring you $100,000 worth of work from outside factors, or from your customer's sphere of influence, or because they made an Instagram post, or because they left a review, or because they posted on Nextdoor or their neighborhood Facebook group, whatever it might be. Always leave a good impression and always prioritize quality, because the return on investment on it's infinite pretty much. That's what I have to say about this.
Ignoring customer service and communication. Failing to address client concerns or feedback not solve or improve upon. Anybody can paint, but nobody can provide customer service. And I will say that, especially, let's say somebody has an exterior project. If you have a good competitor, they might follow the same process as you, same products, similar warranties, whatever. But if people buy for people, if there's been numerous times where I've had customers say, okay, you're a little bit slightly above this person, but I really like you. I like talking to you. I like the fact that you have the color consultation. I like dealing with you. See your Instagram. Your communication is Bartanon. It's like top tier. I really want to work with you. I don't care if it's a little bit higher than that.
And that's
true.
That's what comes into nurturing that relationship with the customer. Nurturing the relationship with the customer doesn't stop when you sell the job, get the job in cash collected. You have to maintain that experience throughout the whole process. And that's something that we really focus on. Constant updates on the phase of a project. Sending them videos, sending them pictures. Hey, we're at this point of your project. Hey, we're here. This is what we're doing. Also, communication when things go wrong. That's another important factor. You communicate with the customer. Hey, we have a delay here. We have to push you a little bit. Things went south here, but we'll make sure we fix it. We'll stand behind our work. And we had a lot of situations that, things went wrong. And we mentioned examples before, like we had that one kitchen that failed on us. We communicated with the customer. We didn't try to hide it. Like, hey, this is the issue that we're facing, but don't worry. We'll take care of it, whatever it takes to make it right. And the customers appreciate that. Don't communicate with them only when things go good. Communicate with them when things going wrong as well. That's how you nurture that relationship. That's how you maintain that customer experience throughout the whole process. And that's how you increase your likelihood of them recommending you, because like, hey, these guys were great. They were showing up on time. They were communicating. They were giving me updates, whatever it might be. And that's what they're going to tell their friends.
Number 6, not doing their job cost analysis, meaning not tracking their expenses or keeping detailed records for their projects. If I were to rearrange this list, I would put it at least on the top 3, maybe even top 2. Job cost analysis is really important, especially because you want to see, hey, am I actually making money on this project? How's the health of my business? It's a good indicator of tracking if things are going good, things are going south, why it's going south, and how you can fix that.
Why are you bleeding money? Why are you not making money from this job? Why did you lose money on this job? Why did you spend more materials? Why your material cost was higher than it's supposed to be? Why was your labor cost higher? Those are things, doing job cost analysis that will make you aware on the field pretty much. Because at the end of the day, if you, again, like we said, shooting from the hip, you have to know where your margins are at. For example, when I was selling very high, and sometimes when you sell very high, you'll land some jobs and then you do your job cost analysis, like, okay, this job, we made X amount of money, so I'm very high. What if I tweaked my formula a little bit and then I started selling at this price? I'll probably start landing more jobs and I'll still be profitable. So even when you make a lot of money or when you hit a home run on a job, you still need to do the job cost analysis to make aware, because like a lot of the leads that you didn't sell, your pricing might have been high, and then you adjust accordingly so you can land more projects and then keep more people busy, bring more income in the business.
Yeah, especially if you do your job cost analysis right, it's a good indicator because a lot of projects are similar. They're almost 95% similar. So if you're pricing a similar project, let's say a little bit down the road, and you price it out the same way and you don't land it, then you can take a look and say, okay, this price it accordingly, it just wasn't meant to be, or stuff like that.
There's not a lot of variables that can change on a painting project. Yeah. It's like every project is similar, like few variables change. And then the more you are aware, the more you do case studies on your project, the better you become as an estimator. And then you can create the SOPs and the blueprints that your sales team can follow, your project managers can follow. But you have to do that legwork from the beginning and not make the mistake of not doing job cost analysis, because once you're ready to grow the business, you're going to be scaling your liability if you don't track those metrics from the beginning.
Number 7, neglect the detail of writing in their contracts and change orders. You never want to get into, I thought you said you would do this too for this price. I thought you said this was already included. You never want to get into battles like this with customers. Remember, the customer is always right, even when they're not. Don't like this phrase, but it's your mistake for not having the scope of work clearly written up and in detail. The amount of examples we can give you is
astronomical,
infinite. But once we said, okay, this is our mistake, we need to improve upon it, everything is detailed in writing. And then the day we actually said we will implement this, we told our sales rep, and then one of our sales rep in their exterior project, when they had the scope of work written out in detail, the colors that are going in each spot, once the time comes around for the final walkthrough, they said, I told you this deck would be this color. And I said, no, this is the scope of work. This is you signing on it, checking every box that every color was put in the right spot. So for us to do that, it would have to be additional. And then they were trying to get us on this. I thought we said it was going to be this color. So that was just immediate effect that helped us on our next project of escaping this. I thought you said this. I thought you said that. And at the end of the day, you might have to yield for some of those scenarios.
If it's not in writing, it never happened. That's why the scope of work needs to be as detailed as possible. If you're going to put one screw on the wall, you have to put it on the scope of work. That way, because that's, like Karmelo said, we ran into that issue a lot of times. And it was our fault because we didn't communicate it effectively and we didn't put it in writing. And every time the customer was like, I thought you said so. And then in the beginning, I would argue them. It never ended well. So when you make that mistake, bite the bullet, take the hit, do right by the customer. And on the next one, make sure you make your scope of work super detailed. And then you make your customer sign it off. And you're like, hey, this is what we talked about. This is what we're going to do. This is the colors. Does all that look good to you? Does it sound right? And the customer will be like, yeah, it sounds great. Sounds good. This is all. They sign off on it. That way, when you go back to them or they come at you like, oh, I thought you said you were gonna paint all my soffits. Like, lady, no. We said only the stock or the body, your trim and soffits, they're not included in this proposal. You're like, oh, but look, it's in my scope of work. And that's an example that I had to deal with one time. And I painted a bunch of soffits for free because I was wrong. It was not in my scope of work. I didn't communicate it. And then you can't go based on like, oh yeah, I told you so, or I communicated. No, it has to be in writing. Very important. It's gonna save you a lot of headaches. Just spending 5 to 10 minutes extra to make your scope of work more detailed. Also, when you do that, it's not only gonna save you future headaches, but it's gonna show the customer how much attention to detail you pay at everything that they communicated with you. And it's gonna make you seem more professional and more caring, and then that you're right there to address their wants and needs. Versus when you don't have a clear scope of work, it's kind of flu, like, oh yeah, I'll paint your exterior, don't worry. It's very vague. So the more detailed you are, also more professional you come as, and more of an expert.
Something I would recommend is put a cap on the colors that you're working with too. We've had an interior once that we did 13 colors, and we didn't put a cap into how many colors we can put in.
That was, and it was a big interior too. It was crazy. Every room was different. So when you're doing a 6,000 square feet interior with a finished basement, doing that many colors adds a lot of labor hours, adds a lot of switches, adds a lot of separations, cleaning your pumps, cleaning your tools, switching. It adds a lot of extra labor, a lot of extra effort, which you have to absorb that cost. And you have to, that's why like you said, we have to put a cap. Hey, past 3 or 4 colors, any additional color is going to be extra because you explain to the customer extra labor, cleaning the tools, separations, all that stuff. Or I remember vividly that one job, they wanted like red walls in their theater room. Red, sometimes they'll need 3 or 4 coats to get 100% coverage and to make the color look right.
Or the pink in that attic room.
Yeah, or the pink in that attic black room, already. Or the blue. It was half blue, half. No, it was like half blue, half pink. That was a lot of work. Very, very bold, intense colors that they needed 3 coats. They needed better quality material. Because I remember I saw that job, I was like, yeah, 4 colors. I didn't put it in writing, and next thing you know, the wife came. It's like, oh yeah, in this room I want this pink, I want this blue. Theater room this red. And what I was gonna do, but like, you cannot argue that because you didn't put it in writing. So we took the hit on that one, and that was one of the projects that really opened the eyes. Like, it taught me, hey, you have to put a cap on colors because you just lost money on this job, and you cannot be in business if you're losing money. Put a cap on colors.
Oh, and another thing that you said on the bold colors, this is good on your preliminary call consultation to get an idea of what they want. So that way in your contract, you can put 2 coats or until full coverage.
Yes.
If needed.
If needed, you have to communicate to them, because if you're selling a job at 2 coats and next thing you know, you need 3 or 4 to cover a bold color or to build up a bold color, you have to communicate to the customer like, hey, it needs more materials and also it needs more labor to get the desired outcome. It's your responsibility as the estimator, salesperson, business owner to communicate that to the customer, because the customer doesn't know red needs 3 or 4 coats to cover. It doesn't know that he needs a gray undercoater. It doesn't know all those things. That's why your job is to educate him or her on what it takes to deliver the desired outcome.
Number 8, ignoring training, investing time and money into skill development, not just for your team, but for yourself as well. You can only get so much better by your own trial and error.
I think that's the biggest mistake people make. So I'll use an example. I was on the phone yesterday with a guy. He has a crazy good operation. They do about $16 million a year. They run on subs. And I was like, hey, what are some key factors of your success? Because that's a very impressive operation. I was like, you're killing it. And he's like, the number one thing that we do is we invest back to our employees, and also we invest back to our subcontractors. I'm like, dude, this is fucking great. They invest time into educating their subcontractors on how to be business owners, how to start a second crew, how to manage jobs, how to manage their financials, how to do taxes, how to manage equipment, how to do all these things, because their success doing $16 million a year relies on having good, functional, and efficient subcontractors to perform and produce the jobs. Because they might bring all this volume in, but they don't have good subs to do the work, the money doesn't come in. So he's like, yeah, it's very important to invest back even to our subs. They're not, even to the guys that are not in-house, we have to educate them and we have to train them in the SOPs. And we do the same thing. Even when we use subs, we still train them on our SOPs. It's not because, oh, this is how we like doing things and it's our way or no way. It's because we explain it to them like, hey, we've done hundreds, like thousands of projects. These are the ways that we think it's better and more efficient based on us tracking those jobs on how to perform and produce this job to have good, high quality and also make more money and be more efficient and finish it faster. That's how you have to look at it. You can't look at it like, oh, he's my sub, I'm gonna let them do their thing. No, you have to give them value because at the end of the day, it's your project. And then that sub, if you treat him right, he's gonna be your sub forever. So pretty much he's an in-house guy. And then you have to invest in them to become better subs because they have their own businesses. You have to invest in them to run their businesses properly. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of fuck-ups, and then it's going to take a hit in your business. If you're using, let's say, a bad crew and they're messing up jobs, guess what? You have to send somebody else to go fix the job. You can't just leave the job messed up. And eventually, you'll take the hit by giving work to a bad crew. So very important. Invest into your painters, invest into your organization. Even like we're not there yet, but eventually once we grow to that scale, we'll invest more in our sales reps, send them out to groups or like seminars and all that. Right now we do all the training, so we don't need to do that. But down the road, also the vision, once we become a bigger organization, we want to invest in our back end as well. Project managers, sales reps, account managers, all that. That's the vision. That's where we see this going. But even when you're a smaller business, invest in your painters, invest into your sprayers, invest into your shop guys, invest into your exterior guys. Teach them ways that they can become more efficient. Don't just, oh, here's the job, get it done. Give them guidance. Give them production guidance, field guidance, and also financial guidance. Because a lot of subs, they suck at managing their own money. They're bleeding money. Sit down with them like, hey, how come you're always broke? I give you so much work. I've been a painter. I know how much money you should be making. How come you're always broke? Sit down with them. And I was telling the guy on the phone yesterday, the main reason I started my podcast is so my painters and my crews can listen to things and become more aware because, again, I can't just sit with everybody one-on-one and train them. So I was like, the main reason I started the podcast is so my guys and my organization can listen to things and then start becoming more aware. So I'm not always on top of them. Yelling at them and teaching them and just listen and then start doing those things. But yeah, shout out to that guy. It was a very impressive operation, and that's something that stuck out. That he said we invest back into our in-house guys, we invest back into our subcontractors because their success makes us more successful, and that's a good business owner. Like I was very impressed by him.
Number 9. Poor time management, mismanaging project timelines, or you're wasting your time doing errand work, like picking up paint, driving to pick up checks, etc.
Oh, man, that's going to be a good one.
You wanna go first?
You go first.
So that just brings back a lot of things because I see guys a lot of the time, they get this phone call, especially from our consulting clients. Oh, yeah, now this guy called me, he needs paint, and all that, and I just basically tell them, why don't you just call the store, or just tell them, go to the store, pick it up, have them call me, put a PO, and that's it. Why do you have to drive all the way out there, drop it off to them, wait for the paint to be made? You're probably wasting an hour to 2 hours when you could just be resolving that with one phone call. And plus, you could just have your helper or one of the guys there that, they're not doing anything until the paint gets there.
It's sitting
to
around.
go pick it up.
Yeah.
It's worth your gas money, your time, especially because of your time. 1 to 2 hours, that's a long time.
Yeah, I remember one time when we first came down here, we didn't know really about the stores. I almost lost it. I remember I went to grab cabinet paint from this one paint store, It was the slowest process ever. And a lot of the Sherwin-Williams stores down here too. That's why we only have like dedicated stores if you have to go pick up. A lot of the stores, super slow. And again, it's our fault. They're busy. We were not proactive. We didn't put the order in from the night before. We deserved it. We deserved to be there and get pissed and be like, okay, I just wasted my time. It was my fault I wasted an hour waiting for the paint to be made because I didn't do my homework from the night before. I didn't call it in to have it ready for pickup. And then there's certain tasks also that you can delegate. For example, I see it a lot. Business owners, they'll they'll go grab materials in the morning. They'll go start their guys. I'm like, dude, what do you mean start your guys? Why don't you have a dedicated crew leader? Why don't you send him a scope of work? Why don't you have them start their own project? It just, especially if it's cabinets. Why do you have to go start your cabinet crew? We're not building a rocket. We're taking the kitchen apart, we're prepping, and we're bringing the doors back to the shop. Why do you have to go drop off the primer, the consumables? Why do you have to go show them? Why your guys are not trained to follow a certain SOP that they duplicate in every single job? It's the same thing. The SOP doesn't change. Very like small little changes. But for the most part, it's the same. You don't have to go start your guys out of every cabinet job. Send them the SOP, send them the customer information, send them the scope of work, the colors, and then delegate those tasks so you can focus on more important things as a business owner. And we used to do that too. We used to go like start the guys on like a 3-bedroom repaint. Why? Or like you drive 1 hour. We were doing that a lot in the beginning in Michigan. Or like we would get jobs far. We would drive 45 minutes there, start the guys, and then drive back, and then drive again somewhere else to start more guys. It was a lot of wasted time in between. And then the biggest time waster was, like you said, with materials. We're not calling in orders. We're not putting them in orders ahead of time. Or we're not having our crew leaders, our project managers. We didn't have project managers at the time. We were the project managers. But we didn't have our crew leaders pick up the materials that they need. Or we didn't have... so a lot of things, that, like, for example, our perishables, like our consumables, like tape, plastic, paper, we'll stock it up. We'll order like pallets of it. And we'll just make sure every guy, especially we keep most of it at the shop, every guy, whatever they need for the job, they pick it up from the shop, tools, tape, paper, rosin. So the only thing that we have to buy is pretty much the paint. Everything else should be in the shop or in the painter's van to be able to start preparation right away. Because another thing, it's like, if you're waiting to pick up paper, plastic, tape to start covering, and then there's a delay at the shop, at the paint store, there's 2-3 guys just sitting around not having anything to do, taking switch plates off so we can seem busy. Also, imagine you go into the customer's house, how unorganized you seem. Everybody waiting for materials to arrive. Or you go to the job, that's another big time waster. You go to the job, you shoot the shit around with your guys, and then you send somebody to the paint store. And everybody just sitting there. Or taking switch plates off. I'm like, I saw that a lot, and we used to do that too. It's not like I see it. We used to make that mistake ourselves as well. So eliminate any time wasters. Break down a week, look at your time blocks, and then identify where you wasted time this week. And then figure out how to delegate that task or how to make it more efficient. Number one thing, call your paint orders ahead. You're scared of overbuying paint? Overbuy paint for a few jobs, learn your mistake, have a bunch of gallons sitting around left over, and then learn for the next one. So you're not always going to be accurate with materials, but if you just need a gallon or two to finish the job, to me, that's a success. But if you have 20 gallons sitting there because you overbought, or you have to make 3-4 trips to the paint store to buy 1 gallon, a half gallon, a quart, 2 gallons, that's a time waster as well. So those are things that you need to identify by being self-aware of the time blocks throughout the week, and also eliminate the bad habits that a lot of us painters have. And then we're like, oh yeah, I'll just go to the paint store and stay there 1 hour. What do we say at previous episodes? Your most valuable asset as a business owner is your time. Figure out how to be more efficient with it and figure out how to not waste it, because you can always make more money and then recoup your losses, but you can never make up for lost time.
Yeah. Or another one of the errand works that I see a lot of people wasting time on is picking up checks, whether it be deposit or final payment. If you're a big enough organization to where you have a crew leader or a lead or project manager, whatever you have, you should be able to trust them enough to just get a check that's under the company name.
Correct.
And you should be comfortable with you knowing like, hey, these are the numbers that we got this project for.
Yes, or you should be comfortable enough for them to have a walk around with the homeowner.
Exactly.
And that's where it comes being open and transparent and have good pay structures. Because a lot of business owners are like, oh, I don't want my guys to know how much money I make. Why? You need to know how much money the business is making. Because when the business is making money, the team members are making more money. When the business is losing money, they're losing money too. It goes both ways. You can't. That's why I hate when people are like, oh, I don't want my guys to make more money, so I go and pick up no, I don't want my guys to know how much money we're making or how much the job costs because and then they waste their time. No, you have to have open communication with your team members. You're like, hey, this job was $10,000. This is how much you make. This is how much we need to be at materials. This is how much the profit needs to be, so the business can operate and we can bring more jobs in. And then by being open and transparent, you're gonna open up more ways for you to delegate tasks to your crew leaders, your project managers, and your estimators. And also delegate more tasks like having walkarounds with a customer or sending somebody for touch-ups. Why would you go with a guy to have a walkaround with a customer so the guy can see the touch-ups? Just have a trustworthy guy that you're gonna send out to do the touch-ups and take care of the customer. Everybody wears the same jersey. We're all a team. We should be able to delegate those tasks. And then picking up checks. Guys, no matter how small or big you are, electronic payments, that's a huge time saver, very efficient. You can either do it with your basic QuickBooks subscription, you can do it with Zelle, you can do it with whatever. Generate invoices, send them to the customer, and then have them pay. It's very simple. If you don't want if you don't want to be collecting checks, driving, just do everything electronically. Have your crew leaders sign off the job, make sure the customer is happy with everything, no touch-ups, they're 100% satisfied with the job. And then once you get the green light from the crew leaders, then you generate the invoice and you're like, hey, Mrs. Homeowner, everything good with the walk around? Good, I'm happy. Let me know if anything. I sent you the link to pay the invoice for the remaining balance. That's the most efficient way. That's how you run an efficient organization. Or if you're still collecting checks, just delegate the tasks. Figure out where you can save time so you can use that time to better the business, bring more work in, be more strategic, do other things that they're gonna bring more value to the business. Because we used to do, I remember I wasted so much time just driving out, hundreds of hours wasted of us going and picking up checks and having the last walkarounds. And if there's a touch-up, you have to schedule the guys to come back because you cannot be there doing the touch-up, so you have to be somewhere else. Very inefficient.
Yeah, that's the worst part that I was going to jump in and say you have to drive all the way out there, say there's touch-ups, you don't have your tools with you, and you're going there expecting to pick up a check.
Yep.
And the client is a little bit here, like, okay, you haven't done the touch-ups. I'm not going to give you the check just yet.
I get it.
So that's why you need to have that trust in your lead or whatever. Just
Painter that you put in a customer house, you should trust them to have a walk around.
Hey, have the walk around, make sure all is good, pick up the check, drop it off.
Or be able to communicate with the customer, like, hey, how's everything looking? Do you see any issues? Is there something that you'd like me to address? All your guys should be proficient like that and be able to have that basic communication with the customer because you cannot be at every job site. And you have to trust those guys. And you have to pay those guys accordingly and compensate them on what they're worth. If you want top performing guys, you have to pay them right. If you want low bottom of the barrel guys, if you put crackheads on a job site, obviously you don't want fucking talking to the customer, but that's your responsibility, recruiting the right people for your organization and training them properly. Not only on how to paint, but how to communicate to the customer. Because those guys are at a project most of the time. If you're a great guy, let's say I sold the job to Karmelo, okay? Karmelo likes me, I'm great with him. He's like, we have a great relationship. He's like, hey, man, I love what you do. You have such a good business. And then I bring the biggest jackasses of a crew to his house. I'm not there. I sold the job. I'm not the one dealing with Karmelo every day. And then let's say my crew leader is a pain in the ass. It's not a good crew. Do you think Karmelo is going to care about how good of a guy I am if those guys are jackasses? No. my relationship with him is ruined. He'd be like, okay, this guy was good, and then he brings me here at the bottom of the barrel painters. They curse, they're very rude,
Smell.
they're not listening, they smoke cigs. It doesn't matter how good of a guy I am. Karmelo is going to develop a perspective of the business based on the people that he sees there every day. And then there's no way to fix that broken relationship no matter what I do. So it's very important, everybody that wears your jersey, to be the same, to be able to communicate with the customers, do good work, address any issues, not be rude, not, just be a good human being, and then communicate with the customer. Super important. It's going to save you a lot of time. It's going to take some time to build that in the beginning, but also you build those teams, then that's how you can grow and you can focus on bringing more work in and expanding your operations.
Number 10, taking on more projects than you can handle because you're hungry and you want to eat everything on the menu.
That's a good analogy. It's like when you don't eat all day and then you go to a restaurant and you're like, okay, bring me everything.
All the appetizers.
All the appetizers, bring me all the food, and the next thing you know, you stuff yourself and you can't eat anymore. It's the same with jobs. Like, let's say you're in a hot streak. You're closing, you're getting a lot of leads in, you're selling, and then you're like, yeah, I'll get to it, I'll take care of it, I'll do all that. And next thing you know, you start a bunch of projects, you spread yourself too thin, you spread your crews too thin, and that's when issues start happening. That's when efficiency drops, that's when quality drops, that's when you start not meeting deadlines, that's when you have to start pushing jobs and you have like, oh yeah, it's taking us longer than we thought. It's because you stretch yourself too thin, and it's impossible to be able to maintain that volume if you don't have the right base structure to support that production side of the business. We were, in the beginning, we are very notorious of doing that.
Yeah, but we put a halt to it because it is a very bad brand image for your company, especially since we've taken on projects sometimes that previous people have left because the homeowners had the complaint of, he would just send one guy one day and then just be disorganized, saying, I got pushed back here, all materials are on back order for this project or whatnot. Yeah, just don't take on more than you can handle.
Yeah, and
there's still going to be work out there. Or be transparent and say, hey, I can get to it this week or this month, but if you're looking, let's say either this week or this month, I can comfortably put you in there.
And a very recent example, we're working with GC, very busy, super busy, projects everywhere. So what they do is they start projects and they'll put like one crew there, they'll put one crew there, they'll collect money, and then the job sites are an active job site for weeks, for months, very inefficient. I'm like, dude, how do you get so much work? I'm like, how is it possible that you get so much work and it takes you months being to a customer's house? I'm like, this is so inefficient. And then we probably won't work with them anymore because let's say we put the project on the schedule for the 18th and we show up on the 18th. Our plan is to finish in 5 days. And next thing you know, the carpentry is not done. Or next thing you know, we have to add some more trim pieces. Or the doors are not in. Or this is not in. I'm like, dude, I cannot work like that. I'm like, I don't need these headaches in my life. Like, we are very, like, how do you say it? Like, if we say we're going to be there on the 18th, we're going to be 5 days, we make...
Punctual.
Punctual. It's going to be done. Because it messes up my whole schedule. And if one job gets messed up and gets pushed back, then everything gets messed up. It's like a domino effect. So I'm like, I can't work with you anymore. I'm sorry. It just throws up my whole schedule. Or if something's not ready, then my guys are sitting around. I'm like, I can't have guys sitting around because I can't just pull my head out of my head the job and call a customer like, hey, guess what?
You're
scheduled for next week, but we're coming there now. No, that's not a good look for us. And also, I can't have my guys sit at home because my guys need to work. We need to bring money in. Everybody has bills to pay. So that's a very recent example of us terminating a relationship with a general contractor because they suck at keeping things on a timeline. And pushbacks and pushbacks and pushbacks. And then the guys get pissed because when you pay a guy on performance and they're not hourly, they expect to finish a project and get paid. Same with us. But if the project is not finished because we have a pushback, because we're waiting on trim to be finished or whatever we're waiting to be finished, or we have to go back to paint the bathrooms because the tile guy was late and he didn't finish, guys get pissed. We get pissed too, but like our painters will be pissed. Like, dude, I can't keep going back and forth. And we get it. And that's why we eliminate those relationships really fast, because it compromises the efficiency of how we schedule jobs, and it compromises the efficiency of how we produce jobs as well. We don't like pushbacks. When we tell people that we want to be there at a certain time and be done in X amount of days, we want to be true to our word. Very common. The contractors are very bad at managing projects, times. They start more projects that they can handle instead of like just focusing. Let's say they can produce 3 projects for the week. Just do 3, finish those, and then start the next ones. They get overexcited when they're selling, and then they get hungry when they see the money coming in. Like, oh yeah, I'll pick up deposit. I'll promise this lady, and I'll just keep pushing her. This is not a good way to grow your business. Also, it takes a hit on your reputation as well.
And you might have some issues with cash flow, especially if you don't deliver the projects and you're just running on deposits still, and you're paying your guys, you're paying your materials and all that, and you're just stressing yourself out.
Yeah, you're not gonna have any money because you still gotta pay people, you still gotta pay your overhead, you still gotta pay things, and if you don't finish project, you have all this money hanging. So it's not a good look.
Out of all these 10, what would your top 3 be that should be the priority of people not to do? My number 1 will be the inconsistent quality. If you don't do quality work, then just expect to have a bad rep around there that, okay, sometimes you'll do good, sometimes you'll do bad, and that stays with you for a long time, and you can never really land as efficiently anymore. Number 2 for me would be the job cost analysis. And I always said top 3, maybe top 2, but I really think job cost analysis is very important to just keep track of your projects, expenses, and see if you priced it good, because then number 1 and number 2 fall directly right under that. And number 3 will be neglecting marketing, because shutting off your marketing avenues just when you think you're busy, and then when you start getting a little bit slow, you turn them back on. It's always a compounding effect. You just can't expect it to turn it on and then just it to crank to the maximum. I think those will be my top 3 that everybody should just avoid doing.
My top 3, I'll start with number 1 because I hate wasting time. It would be poor time management. I would really focus on not wasting time in any channel of the business. Whatever it might be, figure out how to save more time, how to be more efficient. Then number 2 on my top 3 would be ignoring training and investing time and money into skill development for not just your team, but yourself as well. I think that's very important. It goes kind of hand to hand with the poor time management. You have to invest, and then you have to trust your team so you can save up and open up more time blocks for yourself by delegating tasks into your trustworthy team. And number 3, obviously, marketing would be my third one, because without marketing, there is no business. Like we said before, you can be the best painter in the world, but if people don't know that you exist, it doesn't matter. So that would be my top 3. Poor time management, I'll fix that immediately. Training my guys so they can save me more time so I can focus on more important tasks. And then making sure my marketing efforts stay consistent throughout every day, pretty much. Always do something, especially when you try to grow your business. Always do something every day. Either it's running ads, creating content, writing blogs, doing outreach, creating key relationships. That's going to help you grow the business.
The thing with this list is number 1 and number 10 are so
they're all number 1.
Yeah, they're all so the margins are so razor thin. It's everything needs to be avoided.
Yeah,
but
they're all number 1. You should not be making those mistakes. All of them. All right, so this will wrap up this episode of the Dirty Painters podcast.
Be sure to follow our business on Instagram at Olympian Painting, and also our personal pages, Olympian_Redion, Olympian_Karmelo, and also keep up with the Dirty Painters podcast.
If you like this episode, be sure to share it with a fellow painter or tradie. Until next time, this is Redion.
And I'm Karmelo.
Signing off from the Dirty Painters podcast. Thank you, guys.
Take care.